Hello and a very warm welcome to Rise and Thrive. It's a beautiful Saturday, but not only that, but it's also my birthday. And I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone that has wished me well, everyone that has taken time to send me good wishes, to call and say happy birthday. You've texted, you've been on my Facebook page and said happy birthday. I just want to say from the bottom of my heart that I am so grateful. And today I have taken time to do a lot of reflection, looking back at my life and looking at now and where God is taking me. I just stand in awe of God. And I am grateful to be counted among the living because so many people who would have wanted to be alive have passed on, some even younger than me. So it is a privilege to be alive. And I just want to say thank you to God for keeping me and watching over me this far. And I just want to really, really thank you all for your well wishes and just for, some of your messages that really, really brightened up my day, some of them really funny. Teasing me about my age, but hey, I'm aging gracefully. It reminds me of having a discussion with my daughter the other day, and she was saying, Mom, how old are you turning? And when I told her my age, she said, Oh my goodness. When did that happen? So she thought I was like 7 years younger than I am. So I said, look, life passes by so quickly. And I think that's the lesson that we all must grasp, that time waits for no one. So I'm saying all that to say this, that make every moment of your life count for something, impact lives, let your life leave a legacy, be there for people, invest in other people's lives. I just thought I should come on here and just leave a quick word of wisdom, and then I'll just take off to just do a mini appreciation of my life. So, without boring you with all that chatter, but bringing a point home that, hey, life is a gift. You ought to celebrate it, value it, and put it to good use. Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 31, and we are in the month of acceleration. And the Bible says, But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not grow weary, and they shall walk and not faint. So I will be bringing to you a few aspects of, or characteristics, if you like, of an eagle that we can actually learn from in this season of acceleration. How can we maintain our posture of strength after the Lord has strengthened us, after he has caused us to mount up with wings like an eagle? How can we now maintain the momentum that we have built and ensure that we actually accelerate into our growth, accelerate into impact, accelerate into a fresh anointing, accelerate into a broader scope of business, whatever you're trying to accelerate into? I want to submit to you these qualities of an ego that you will need to possess, or if you don't already possess them, you will need to cultivate. So the ego has, number one, vision. And we are told that the ego's vision is very sharp and it can see from as far as 50 feet, and it's got that sharp distant vision. So it can see things from very far away. And what we learn from this is that it's very easy sometimes when we enter new territories to get distracted. And that's why it's important that as you accelerate into your new level, that you will keep your eyes focused on why you are doing this. It's very easy to get lost in the activities, get lost in the hype of, oh my goodness, I'm doing well, I am rising, I am soaring, this feels so good. But we can lose sight of why we are soaring. And so vision is very important as you accelerate, as you run the race, as you mount up with those wings into new areas of influence. Remember the reason why you are even flying, the reason why you even took off in the first place, the reason why you said you were not going to remain on the same level and you decided that you were going to soar. The second characteristic of an eagle is that it's fearless. Oh my goodness. It is bold. It is assertive, which simply means as we accelerate into growth, we need to be fearless. Now, the norm is to be, oh, let's take calculated risks. And I know there's a place for that. But even in our calculation of risk, it's not all the risk that we can balance. We can try to debit and credit. Sometimes risk doesn't balance because there's that part of risk taking that no one ever sees. And that's where now we need to walk by faith and not by sight, because life is not predictable. We need to understand that much as we calculate the risk, there is an element of faith that needs to be practiced. And faith can only take dominance in us if we get rid of fear. So be fearless. Find out how other people are actually advancing into those spaces that you want to get into. You have all it takes. This is an area that God has called you to. You have trained for it. You have consulted. You have been mentored. You have been coached. You have been ready for the past 1 year, the past 2 years. But fear has kept you back from actually activating what you need to do in order for you to enter that new realm of influence. I talk about this aspect of being bold when I talk about courage in one of my chapters of my book, which actually is here. I would encourage anyone who doesn't have this book yet, Bounce Back Stronger, Wisdom Keys for Resilience in Times of Setback. I encourage you to purchase this book. You can get it from my website, and my website has all the links to the different Amazon stores. So Amazon stores for different countries. I have made them available in Zambia and also in South Africa. So all those details can be supplied to you. But the reason why I'm lifting up this book and talking about it really is that there's a chapter that talks about courage. And I talk about it here in the light of courage being a very necessary ingredient for you to actually rise from any setback. So I opened the chapter by saying courage is about feeling the fear and still doing the very thing that generates the fear. And I talk about my mentor there, one of my very first mentors and coach. She's going to be with the Lord now. And she talks about this principle of self-preservation, which is something you can read about when you buy the book. But my key message from the book is where I talk about courage to deal with the naysayers, because usually what robs us of our courage is what people say to us when we have decided that we are going to, mount up with wings like an eagle, and we know how we're going to do this, and we have a plan, and we have prepared, and we have prayed, and then naysayers come and speak negative words into your ears, and that just sends you on a downward spiral and you fail to accelerate. Here is what I say in my book. When God has trained you in private, have the confidence to bounce back into that new level of anointing and function. Don't apologize for occupying a place that God has qualified you for. Only you know what training you have gone through spiritually, emotionally, and sometimes academically. You have qualified for the place that you are functioning in. When you are faced with criticism and ridicule because people don't understand how you got where you are, adopt the courage that David had when he was ridiculed on the battlefield when he faced Goliath. And then I go on to talk about David's account with Goliath. So, beloved, the point I'm trying to drive home here is that it is imperative that we operate in a level of courage if we are going to actually move with the momentum that the ego demonstrates. The third characteristic is that egos are high flyers. Uh, Now, that sounds like a worldly term. I'm a high flyer. But egos are literally high flyers, and they can fly up to an altitude of 10,000 feet. So, what does this mean? It means that we need to begin to accept challenges. You know, the challenge of soaring up is not an easy challenge. You have to push into the atmosphere. You have to mount up on stormy winds until you get to the place where you begin to glide over the winds. So acceleration gives you that momentum, but for you to continue running and not growing weary and walking and not fainting, you need to attain those heights that will hold you steady at that altitude so you can maintain your influence. Because, beloved, sometimes we rise to heights, and when the storm comes, if we can't hold ourselves properly and steady at that altitude, we risk being knocked down back to the place where we are now back to the ground, where we associate with pigeons that cannot fly. I'll leave that one there. Number 5, egos never eat stale things. We are told that egos only eat meat from the prey that it has killed itself. So an ego will always eat fresh meat. As you enter new spaces, you will find out that the tools that you used in your old space no longer serve you fully at your new level. And so you must understand that as a person that's evolving and growing, you need to be a reader. You need to be a continuous student. You need to look out for knowledge. You need to constantly improve and develop yourself if you're going to sustain that new level of influence. So stop eating things that have been sitting for years. Stop using old ways to implement new systems. Of course, there are things you can borrow from the old systems, but you modify and innovate and make them work for your new level. And if they can't be modified, discard them and pick up new ideas. Learn from those that have gone ahead of you and gain knowledge daily to help you sustain your position of high altitude. Number 6, egos possess vitality. Vitality, stamina, durability. They don't easily just, resign and throw in the towel. Egos are full of life, and we know that as visionaries of our purpose and our destinies, we need to be full of life. We need to look after ourselves. Look after this body. This is a temple and a dwelling place of our being, our spirit man, and everything that we are. This body houses who we are. And so we need to look after our bodies. And how does the ego actually give us that example? We are told that egos live up to an age of 30 years, and they can choose to die then if they don't do the following things. So what an ego does is that when it gets to the age of 30, it can also choose to rejuvenate itself. And so it will fly to the peak of a mountain, and it will stay there for months. And we are told up to 3 or 4 months, the ego will just be there. And what it does, it starts knocking its beak against a rock, knocking its beak against the rock until the outside part of the beak comes loose. And the ego begins to grow a new beak. You can imagine that's a painful process. The other thing it does is it plucks its feathers, plucks all the old feathers, and it waits for the new feathers to grow. And after the ego has done this, we are told by researchers that the ego will live for another 30 to 40 years. I wonder if human beings were given the opportunity to actually elongate their lives by disappearing for 5 months, and then you come back after doing all this work and you earn yourself 40 years plus. I can guarantee you there are people who would still not do it because of this thing here, laziness. Sometimes people just don't want anything that demands that they put in some level of effort. And so people would have been disappearing off the face of the earth at the age 30. But those few people that are self-driven, those ones that are willing to put in the hard work, would probably go to the rock and go through that painful experience of rejuvenation and come back to being relevant and leaving a legacy for this generation. There will be times when we begin to feel a bit weak. What are we going to do? Are we going to just give up at 30 years old, or we are going to go to that mountain and go through the painful experience of renewal? Beloved, the painful experience of renewal includes discipline. People will begin to people that you respect will begin to watch over you and pull you aside and say, look, I think you're going too fast. Look, I think you missed the exit. Look, I think you were a bit too harsh with that employee of yours. Look, I think you need to look after your family and make sure that things are okay at home. I think you need to slow down and consider what you're doing to your health. Those are processes that will help you stay in the race and go far. So the vitality that you need to maintain that position of a high flyer at a high altitude will require that you retain your vitality, and if possible, you continue to renew it using the people and the systems that God has put in place in your life. Number 7, and I think I'll make this my last one. Eagles nurture their young. They nurture their young, and eagles are very aggressive when it comes to protecting their young, but also aggressive when it comes to training their young. So, what do we learn from this characteristic? It simply means that as we soar up, as we gain new altitudes, we are not going solo. We are taking others with us. And so when we take the people we mentor, when we take the people we are coaching, the people we are supervising, the people we are training, and the people that are understudying us, when we begin to soar, they will have to come up a level as well. And so you will find that because you, as a visionary of where you're going, of your business or your ministry, when you begin to shift upwards, you will force those that are working with you to shift upwards as well. And sometimes people may have heard about the vision and the plan for a long time, but it's just in human nature that you have a few that are not mentally, psychologically, or even spiritually ready to go where you are going. So you need to be mindful that, like a nurturing eagle, you need to be patient with the people that are coming with you to accomplish this vision with you. So on this race that we are running, whether it's a race to increase your business, a race to increase your ministry, whatever it is that you want to accelerate in this month, I encourage you to not forget the ones that God has said go with. Beloved, it's not everyone that you're going to go with. It is those ones that God has said, these are the ones that you are taking to the new altitude of 10,000 feet because they have the stamina, they have the training, they have the clear vision, they have the resilience and tenacity to stick with things when they begin to get windy and rough at that new altitude. So we learn from these characteristics of an eagle that as we accelerate and soar, there are things that we need to take into account. And as I have highlighted on this time of sharing wisdom, we need to understand that it's important to take heed to these things. We need to have clear vision. Don't lose sight of vision. And, don't be sheepish. Don't be a coward. Be fearless. Engage your faith. Have tenacity when things get rough. Stick with it and pray about it. Engage your faith again. Receive, counsel if you have to, but do not give up. Have tenacity to stick with it. And number 4, be a high flyer. Make sure you aim high. If you aim at nothing, you will hit nothing. And that's my mentor, John Maxwell, says that. And number 5, don't rely on old methods. Don't eat dead meat. Kill your own prey. Innovate and venture into new ideas and ways of doing things. Also, possess vitality. Make sure you exercise, you look after your body, and make sure that you renew your strength. Retreat if you have to recuperate and to re energize, but go back into the rest with more vitality until you achieve that which you are pursuing. And lastly, you need to make sure that the people that God has assigned to take with you to the new height, you look after them and make sure that they have the resources to actually hold up things with you at that new level. So I will end here, beloved, and thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Rise and Thrive. And thank you once again for the birthday messages. Yes, thank you very much. I will enjoy my birthday. Love you so much. God bless you. Keep rising, keep thriving. This is Lady Dee, and I will see you next time. God bless.